Commute times may seem simple and quick, but there's more to know than you think. It really is important to understand when moving to Boise, because I see far too often where people look at homes or end up buying a home and underestimating or just flat out being oblivious to the fact that the drive is much longer than they think. And after a year, they want to move or they hate where they live. So let's take a look at the commute times, the traffic, and things to watch out for when it comes to commuting in the valley, so you can be prepared and choose the right location to live in the Boise, Idaho area. Now, Boise is not going to be like other major cities like LA, Portland, Seattle, but it has grown fast and hard. We have almost gained a couple 100,000 people just in the last couple of years alone, and that has created major traffic and commute issues within the valley. Our infrastructure has not been able to keep up with the speed of the growth here. I'll talk about more of that at the end after we go through some of the commute times in the valley. I'll start off with Boise. Your commute into Boise is 0 minutes, but what to focus on here is where you live in Boise and what your commutes might look like into the city center. If you live in the north end, downtown, and in the northern end of the bench, you are going to be able to walk or bike almost anywhere within 15-ish minutes, which I know for some of you is very important. Being able to walk and bike wherever you need to go. Where it gets a little farther is when you live in South Boise, out by Costco and the airport, West Boise by Meridian, and then Southeast Boise along the foothills just outside of town. For all three of these commutes into the main city center, it's going to be around 10 minutes most of the time, depending on traffic. But what most of you are here for is the suburbs, where the more affordable suburban living is. That requires that commute into work or the events during the week or weekends that you want to go to. Meridian is going to be the most centralized, and almost anywhere you live in Boise is going to be about 15 to 20 minute drive into work or the events. And when traffic is bad during rush hour, from about 7 to 9 in the morning and then 4 to 6 in the evenings, it usually adds around 15 minutes to all of these drives that we discuss. Where that can be significantly longer is during the winter months. But I will talk about that at the end of this, and we'll go over how the snow in the winter affects a lot of the commutes and traffic in Boise. Now, on either side of Meridian, you have Kuna and then Eagle, which are two very popular suburbs in the Boise area that me and my team get reach outs all the time for. And as a Boise local of more than 20 years and as a real estate agent, I love talking to people like you and helping you relocate to the Boise area. So shoot me a text or a call anytime, and I look forward to seeing you out there on my commute into Meridian and Boise from Kuna, which is where I just moved to. And me and my wife are both loving it out here. It is a smaller town, which I love, but if me or my wife need to run into Meridian, it is only a 12-minute drive down Meridian Road to all of our major shopping or our evening dates to some of the restaurants there in Meridian. Boise gets a little bit longer from Kuna, turning into usually 25-minute drive when the traffic's not bad, and then 40 minutes during rush hour, which is where Eagle has a little bit of an edge when it comes to commutes. It's only a 15-minute drive into Boise. When you take State Street, or known as Highway 55, it's only about 10 minutes into Meridian and all of the awesome amenities that Eagle Road in Meridian has to offer. So some really nice, easier commutes there in Eagle. It's really not as bad as especially Kuna. Now, most people can live with these commutes. It can be annoying, but this is where the majority of people live who work in Boise, and you don't hear as many complaints when you live in Meridian, Kuna, or Eagle. Where I see the most complaints is when people decide to live in Star, Caldwell, Nampa, Middleton, the farther suburbs in the valley. This is where it drains people, and I hear it all of the time. Yes, it is much more affordable out there, but for some people it isn't worth it, and others, they just have to make do and deal with the commutes because it is the only place left in the valley that they can actually afford, so they're just required to make that drive. In Nampa, if you live close to the interstate off of either Garrity Boulevard or the Karcher exit, which are the major exits in Nampa, it isn't bad and is similar to Kuna because of that quick access onto I-84. Sometimes it might even be a little quicker if you live right in some of those new developments off of those exits. But if you're on the outskirts of Nampa, kind of out by where the older city center is in Nampa, and then in Caldwell and Star, this is when you really get into that 45 to an hour or more drive during rush hour, where it gets especially bad in the winter, which again, I will talk about that here in just 1 second. But within each of these cities, the traffic off of the major roads like Eagle Road, Meridian Road, Shinden Road, Highway 55 over an Eagle that runs through Star, it can get bad, but especially when we have construction. All of that growth requires new roads and upgrades, and right now they're doing construction on 2 different streets on my wife's way to work, which it used to be a 15-minute drive, and now it usually takes about 30 minutes, sometimes more. We've found a little bit of a way around some of the bad traffic, but if you go the typical way that Google Maps tells you, it can be almost 45. So traffic can really affect some of those major routes that you have, and that is a common occurrence all over the valley. If you have construction on your routes to work, it will add that 5, 15, or even 30 minutes, and it clogs up the rest of the streets on the detours. This is definitely the worst in Meridian and Eagle. Eagle right now has some major construction right as you enter into town, and it's constantly bumper to bumper. And then in Meridian, there is always a road somewhere being built or fixed, especially in where all of the neighborhoods are and some of the smaller side streets. So no matter where you end up living here, expect construction to cause some sort of hiccup at some point. Now, when it comes to the weather, when we get storms here, it can add 5 minutes or it can add an extra hour to your commute. The snow and ice can really mess these commute times up and add a ton of stress and hassle to your drive into work. So be prepared for that, which if you want to learn more details on some of those commutes, click this video here and watch it. I go into a lot of detail on what you can expect in Boise when it comes to the snow and the weather and your commutes.